Welcome back to Dubai Soul Oasis. I'm your host Priscilla, and we're back again with Cheung, the back guru. Today's story proves anything is possible. 4 women, no rowing experience, full-time jobs, and one big dream: crossing the Atlantic Ocean. With Paul by their side, they took on the biggest journey of their life, full of inspiration when they showed endurance and courage when they entered themselves into the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge. Paul, this story is incredible. Can you tell me, how did this evolve?
When I pretty much finished with Formula One, I needed a project to get my teeth into. I was still very hyper and super focused, thinking, what am I going to do with myself now that I'm not racing? And my wealth management financial advisor happened to come around one day and was talking about mortgages and pensions and so on. And he mentioned that his wife, Nikki, was going to enter the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge. And I said, okay, what for? And she goes, well, she and 3 other friends are aiming to raise money for charity, for cancer care and the Yorkshire Air Ambulance Service. And I said, this is crazy. I said, do they know what they're doing? And he basically said, well, not really. They only discussed it over a glass of wine and decided this is what they wanted to do. And I said, okay, let me have a chat with Nikki and her friends. And so the following weekend, they invited me around to their house, and we had Sunday lunch, and we just basically talked about what they were going to do as a setup.
How much time was there when they came to that idea? Like, you start talking to them, but was there a large space of time that they could prepare themselves, or was this also very short after each other?
It was an 18-month project.
Mm.
Yeah, and so in 2014 was when they thought of the idea, and then roughly around early springtime, when I was having this chat, with my financial advisor, that's when it kicked off. We basically started with setting up the foundation of a land crew, so that there was me to look after their musculoskeletal injuries.
Mm.
There was a GP involved as well, who also trained them to do medicine at sea. Also a physical trainer, and we also had somebody who could do the nutritional advice, as well, and also a sports psychologist. So it all started to gel together very, very slowly. The boat was only on design on a piece of paper, though the boat builder, he's built boats before for the Atlantic Challenge, is only 2.4 meters wide and up to 8 meters long. Cabin at the front, cabin at the back. And it's designed not to capsize. And even in a major storm, you could lock yourself in the front cabin and the back cabin and be protected. So you'll never sink. So safety was one of the biggest priorities for them.
Yeah. So yeah, we're having this conversation over your Sunday roast with them. They're all excited. They're like, "Oh my goodness, we've got this idea. Us 4 girls, we're gonna tackle this challenge."
Yeah, that's right. So we started looking at training
Mm.
and what they're going to do. They said, "Yep, we're going to go running, we go cycling." And one of the first things I said, "Look, no, forget about running. I know it's going to be good for your health, but there's nothing in a boat that mimics running. You have to be very sport specific." So they all ended up with the Concept 2 rowers, rowing machines. Each one of them had them in their lounges so they could watch TV and row. And the idea was that they rowed 2 hours a day
Wow.
for the months leading up to the actual Atlantic Challenge in 2015.
But how can they start? I mean, that must be built up already, because if you've never rowed, were
Mm,
they at
mm.
least sporty already, or?
Yeah, some were just into perhaps hiking, gym work, Pilates. Most working mums and general people do with families. They can
Mm.
fit in whatever they can fit in. Though being a huge challenge like this, they really need to change the game completely and look at their human performance. at a much higher level.
Mm.
And so, drawing from my experience in F1 and bringing it to the Atlantic Challenge, is they thought this is very exciting. So I did what I could to give them as much of my knowledge as possible. To help them, one, prevent injury, but two, make it sustainable so that they could train nearly every day to build up their fitness, because they didn't really have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And when you're working with people who are in their middle ages, they won't be quite as quick or adaptable as somebody in their 20s
Yeah.
to build up their fitness.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they start with 2 hours a day of rowing. Are they allowed to spread that time out, or was it better to do the bursts as in 2 hours after each other?
Well, they really struggled with 2 hours rowing
Yeah.
at the very beginning. In fact, one of the ladies, Helen, she rang me one day and says, "Look, Paul, I could barely do half an hour on the rower." And I said, "Okay, you've tried this for 2 or 3 weeks, and how come you only just managed to do half an hour?" I said, "What are you eating?" And she said, "Well, I'm having these superfoods like chia seeds and goji berries and low-fat Greek yogurt." And I said, "This is where you're going wrong." I said, "What I want you to do is to have a full English breakfast plus plus, and I want you to have calories. Your body's like a furnace; it needs to burn calories." So she did that. Next day, she rings me up and says, "Guess what? I did an hour and a half."
Oh,
I
no.
thought, well, fantastic. There you go. A woman would normally burn about 1,700 calories a day, average. But when we did the research and reading around the subject, you need to burn about 9,000 to 12,000 calories a day, to be able to do the Atlantic
Oh
Challenge.
my
Okay.
goodness, that's
So,
massive.
yeah, absolutely. So you can imagine we then started to look at what they were eating and how often
Yeah.
they were eating in order for them to be able to not only spend time on the rower, though also build up the muscles, for their arms and their shoulders and their core stability and the legs to be able to push and pull, on the rowing machine. Yeah. So that was the biggest challenge. Of course, when you're repeating this action all the time, you're going to get repetitive strain injuries
Mm.
of your wrists and your tendons and your elbows and your shoulders and your back and your legs. So I was there twice a week, once a week sometimes, just to sort out their injuries, speed up their recovery, so they can just crack on with training.
Yeah. While they are starting to build up that stamina, your body starts to change, your mental status start to change. Were there already very many challenges in the early stages?
The good thing about the four of them, and this is where the psychological profiling came through, because it worked out who was going to be a good leader,
Mm.
the skipper, the captain, who was going to be the logistical organizer, who was going to be the emotional support person, and who was going to be the person who could galvanize everybody together. So they all had their roles. Once we figured out what their aptitudes and their abilities were, they even profiled me just to see if I was a lunatic. But ended up that they said, "Yep, you know what you're doing, and you're willing to take risks every so often."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I kind of like helped in that respect.
So, as they're already
Hmm.
friends, were they friends for a long time already, or was this also
They were school mums. Yeah, so
school moms?
they
Okay.
actually met each other on school runs
Mm.
and became friends. And Frances, who's the lawyer, she read a book about apparently a mother and daughter who did the Atlantic Challenge, and they thought, well, if they can do it, we can do it too. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they needed a sense of purpose. I think Frances said, in a YouTube video, four mums in a boat. So that, yeah, she was just driving to and from work for the last 10 or 20 years,
Mm.
this continuous journey, thinking, is this it? Is this what life's all about?
Yeah.
So she wanted something different,
Yeah.
completely different to do. And the Atlantic Challenge was something she wanted to do. And of course, she talked her friends into it.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. People want to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
They have that often in their midlife to say, "Hey, I want to achieve something." This is pretty specific, and
Hmm.
it's very, very demanding of your body, your physical strength, your emotional strength, and also with the support system around you, like your family, because the time that you have to take away from being a mom plays a huge role in this. And okay, it's possibly a short burst. Still, 18 months is a big strain on a full running family.
Yeah, that's right. And they thankfully had the family to focus on, and it kind of brought them into it in a very positive way, and it caused a lot of excitement with their kids and their husbands and friends. So they had loads of support, from everybody in the Yorkshire community. It really was a fantastic story that was then followed by BBC Yorkshire and the Yorkshire Evening Post newspaper. I think they felt the encouragement, to be able to pursue their goal of raising money for a cancer caring home and Yorkshire Air Ambulance.
Yeah.
They were also occupied with doing the Seamaster training course as well. So Jeanette, who was the skipper, she was saying that she went up to some training facility where sailors go to understand maritime rules, what happens when the boat capsizes, emergency procedures. So she was there with these salty sea dogs, as she described, and they're looking at these four women thinking, what the hell are these girls doing here?
Yeah.
Like this. So yeah, they just went through the whole process of understanding how to manage themselves and the boat should anything happen at sea.
Yeah. And did they also, like they did in their living room, they did their rowing, they got their exercise going, but did they also go to the pool and do swimming to get strength there?
Yeah, of course they did. Yeah,
Just in case of an emergency.
Yeah. They even went to a pool, where the boat deliberately capsizes, and they have to learn how to get themselves out and basically survive.
Yes. Yeah.
They also have to be fairly competent swimmers because they've also got to get into the water in the Atlantic Ocean to scrape the barnacles off the hull of the boat.
Oh my
Because if you have things growing on the hull, it can slow you down by 1 or 2 knots. So every so often they had to go and scrape the rubbish that's built up, over time. Yeah.
And how does it go with the navigation of it all? Because, okay, you get into the ocean and you know where you have to cross to, but you have to learn about navigating a boat through a certain route. You have to navigate through storms.
Yeah.
Did they have to be educated on that, or
Absolutely.
where do you start? Because it's so many elements you forget to think about. You think, I can just do a bit of rowing, but
that's right. Yeah,
you've got nature to deal with and a huge ocean, right?
Absolutely. They have to learn radio communication, of course, and you're right about the navigation. Have to learn by looking at the stars as well. And the good thing is the boat did have a sat nav system. So it's linked to an auto rudder that can help you steer whilst you're rowing. Now, what was interesting was that the system did actually break down during their Atlantic challenge, and they had to steer the boat manually by hand, the rudder, or pulling on ropes, depending on where they were on the boat. So that slowed them down big time, because the screen was off. And
one of them is, of course, focusing on that, and then you've got 3 rowers. Is it like they row four at once?
No, the system was 2 on, 2 off every 2 hours.
Okay.
Consistently. And so sleep was very much a snack. Now that sounds ideal. After you've rowed 2 hours, then you've got a few moments to do some hygiene, use a toilet, which is a bucket, and prepare some food so you can eat, make something to drink, and you may even just have an hour and a half just to sleep. Now that didn't happen. You've also got to envisage being on a roller coaster constantly. It's moving all the time.
All the time.
And the waves can be massive, and they can knock you around. They can knock you off your seat. You lose the rhythm. You're constantly moving. Poor Helen, she was sick all the time, and they were really worried that she wasn't going to make it. And then one day she just turned around, she stopped being sick, and she just carried on rowing. So she managed to get over that. Some people on the Atlantic Challenge have actually just pressed the emergency button, waited for a boat to come rescue them. And there was a team of 4 guys, I believe, very well moneyed, fantastic boat. One guy was so sick, he was, pretty much comatose, so they had to press the emergency button.
Mm.
And when the rescue boat came along, got him off. But another guy said, right, I'm coming off as well. So that team of 4 became a team of 2, and they had to complete the Atlantic Challenge. So,
And that
yeah.
still continues.
Yeah, so these guys,
Wow.
they still continued. But Yorkshire Rows actually knuckled down and completed it.
Yeah, because for people that don't know the race, it is a long race. It's 67 days, right?
Well, they did in 67 days. The record is 29 days.
Oh,
And that's done by a team of 4 people, I think in their 20s. And no, it also depends on the conditions, because Yorkshire Rows actually came into Hurricane Alex, and they were basically locked in a cabin at the front of the boat, back of the boat, and they were tossed around for like 3 days, until the storm passed. They tried to outroad the storm by going south when they saw it in the GPS, but yeah, they couldn't outrun a hurricane, so they ended up being caught in it.
Do they have good support system or contacts from outside to help them navigate through the situation, or was it really down to the 4 of them?
It's pretty much down to the 4 of them.
Oof.
They can have sat nav communication, but it's very limited. Because it's pretty much up to them to do what they can do.
Yeah, that must be so scary though.
It's very scary. I think a few of them did say before they even got to the Atlantic Channel that they were genuinely scared.
Yeah,
They got to that point of realization that, holy crap, this is serious.
it's real. It's real.
Yeah, totally. And it is a life-threatening thing.
Yeah.
And I know that in motorsport it can be life-threatening as well, because back in the days when Sir Jackie Stewart was racing cars, he was going to a funeral every month, because drivers were dying.
Yeah.
Until the health and safety aspect really kicked in and things became much, much safer as it is today. But again, that realization of being out on the boat, out in the ocean, under these terrible conditions, it suddenly made them realize, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, that's pushing boundaries for
Yeah,
sure.
of course. And when they were leaving La Gomera, which is the small island next to Tenerife, that's the start of the race to row to Antigua. They actually sent the families packing a day or 2 before. They didn't want the families to be there at the start, because the psychology of them as they're rowing away,
Yeah.
thinking, okay, there's my kids there. Have I said everything to them? And is this the last time I'm going to see them? They actually didn't want the distraction.
Yeah, well, it's an emotional block.
Very much
Because
emotional.
first of all, it's a huge step to actually enter that ocean and to go 2000% for that challenge.
Yeah.
But if then the emotional and the empathy comes in, I'm sure that blocks you and can give you doubt and fear on a different level again. So once you take the family to the side and it's just them, it's the girls, they're, I think, hyping themselves up and come on, we've got to do this. There's fear, but there is courage. So I think there's 2 very different emotions. So I guess it's all guided by psychologists and specialists that they know that this was one of the reasons why things have to be separated at the start.
Yeah, that's right. They didn't want to get so busy that suddenly the families were pushed aside. So better to get them back home first and catch up with them at the finishing line in Antigua. It was also really hard because it was also a Christmas without the families.
Yeah.
Because it was December 2015 that they didn't spend Christmas. Though they all took one little thing wrapped up in Christmas paper, and they had something to open
That's so cute.
on Christmas Day when they're on the boat somewhere in the middle of the ocean. Yeah.
You wouldn't think that would be part of your journey, actually, that you'd be unwrapping Christmas presents in the middle of the ocean.
Though it's nice to have that as a way to anchor yourself, that this is the timeline and they're racing towards the finishing line.
And especially if you think about the intensity, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. Is that 67 days long? 2 hours on, 2 hours off? It's like,
If they could do it a lot quicker, then yeah, sure, they could have done it in maybe 55 days or 45 days. But they also came across another problem with not only the GPS system and the auto rudder failing, the desalination pump failed as
oh,
well. Normally you can just press the button, the water comes out, and that's it. So what they had to do instead was to manually pump. So there's almost like this handle that you pump, backwards and forwards like that, and it takes 45 minutes to get a litre of water.
oh,
So when there's two of them, who are not rowing, then they're on duty to pump water for the rest of them. Not only do they need drinking water, they also need the water to hydrate, some of the food packs that are specially prepared, so that you can pour water into them to hydrate the food, put them into a jet burner to heat them up if you want hot food, and so it actually added another challenge to the so-called time off, from rowing, that they had to prepare, and this is another thing that slowed them down big time.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a huge strain on the body. So
Oh,
it's
totally.
body, mind, the whole package of it, of managing the direction where you need to go, managing each other, the emotions that maybe one person, I don't know, did it happen that, as we say, okay, one got very sick, but once that was recovered, did any of them have a breakdown to say, I can't do this anymore? Did they go through those phases?
Oh yeah, they did, and it's okay to break down and cry and have a good weep about it, and maybe the other person would then do a bit more of the rowing stint, for the person who just needed a break. Yeah, sure, there were moments that they had to cry on each other's shoulders, and then you'll see on YouTube there was day 60 of the Yorkshire Rows. There was Francis and Jeanette lying in the cabin looking up at the camera, and they were just breaking up in hysterics, and you sort of think, have they just gone mad or something? But they were just taking the mick out of Helen, who kept shouting at them, 1 minute to go, 1 minute to go, your turn. And they go, Helen thinks we're going to start rowing, and it just got really funny. So I had these really sweet moments as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the feeling of victory, that you can push each other through, that you bring each other out of the lows into the highs again. I mean, of course, it's a spectacular journey that you are doing together, right?
Yeah.
And to think that from where you've come from to then be into the big ocean, well, you're into the big ocean, and then having to deal with food that's specialized, put together. Did the teams do that here, or is there standard? Do you have like shops for that?
I think the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge company will provide you with people who can prepare these things for you. One of the sponsors, Holland and Barrett, they supplied them with healthy foods as well, as an option to take on board with them. Of course, they were only limited to however much food they could take per person. So again, don't forget, you've got to carry, I can't remember if it's 100 kilograms or 150 kilograms or something, dehydrated food, so that you can survive, on that.
The whole support system around is properly set up.
Yes. Like I said, if you come across an emergency, you can hit the red button, and that sends a signal beacon to a rescue vessel. And the rescue vessel may take 1 day, may take 2 days to get to you. However, maritime rules state that if there's another vessel nearby, whether it's a trawler or a luxury cruise liner, they've got to stop and pick you up. And that's happened to people before in the past. Some people got picked up by a grotty, rusty old trawler, so they had a bit of a tough journey getting home. And teams in the past have been picked up by a luxury cruise liner, and they had a really nice time going back.
It's like, that's a better position.
It's a bit of pot luck, really, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like, I'll just make a holiday out of it afterwards.
Yeah.
What was your feeling? Because you've known them from the moment of the Sunday roast, that you know from like, hey, we've got this big dream, not realizing what it all entails, to seeing them go onto the ocean. What did that do to you?
It was a sense of like wow, I'm really proud of them. They really have focused themselves so much to getting to where they are into the boat. Their level of fitness and the physique has changed so much, um, to the point where even after the Atlantic Challenge and they came back to the UK, I spent a couple of weeks checking them over. I thought, wow, I've I can't really find too much wrong with them.
Yeah,
You know, they really
really
did ramp up their body's abilities to become very, very strong and very resilient. Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. I thought they'd come back broken. You know,
Mm.
problems here, there, and everywhere, strains, inflammation, and stuff. But no, it was completely the opposite. They were fantastic. Yeah.
So it shows that preparation,
Hmm.
continuity, discipline,
Hmm. Hmm.
and if you know what you need to be training, as you said from the start,
Hmm.
you need sport specific
Hmm.
training.
Hmm.
Like it is that running is great, but it's not what you need for this challenge.
Hmm.
So once the preparation is in, with the right guidance, with the right food intake,
Hmm.
you can actually maintain in the moment of all the stressors
Hmm. Hmm.
with everything they had to deal with, that they actually are that have become very strong bodies. That's actually quite interesting. I would have never thought that
Hmm. Hmm.
that would help, that
Yeah.
would happen. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when they realized how close the finishing line was,
Mm.
that really gave them such a boost, you know,
Mm.
mentally, and they suddenly become so happy, so elated. And I think it took them a long time for it to sink in that they've actually achieved this, you know, amazing goal, and that their families were there to, you know, hug them and kiss them, and you know, shed many tears, and um, yeah, it was just an unbelievable feeling for them. I was quite sad that I couldn't go to the finishing line. I was busy preparing myself to come to Dubai,
Mm.
and I was here just, you know, trying to sort out houses and schools and such like. So I missed out on a, you know, very emotional, you know, sort of return home, if you like.
Yeah.
They were a bit wobbly on the legs, you know, because they've been constantly, you know, moving around the sea
Yeah.
for 6 to 7 days, and it took them a while for them to get used to walking on land again. As you can imagine, the hamstrings were a bit tight because they were just like constantly
Sitting.
sort
Yeah.
of like hovering around, you know, on a boat, and not stretching out too much at all. It was really funny. Helen's hair was a complete mess. You can imagine it's been blown by the wind. It was really matted, and because there was a luxury cruise liner that was docked nearby, and the people come off to see this wonderful event of these girls returning. Apparently, two of the beauty therapists in the cruise liner came along and unmatted Helen's hair. Spent 2 hours, you know, trying to get all the knots out, and so she could look nice.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, it was really nice how everybody just pulls together to, you know, help each other. But one of the funniest moments was on GMTV, Good Morning Britain TV, when they had a satellite link, you know, to the Yorkshire Rows, because there was a story about them rowing naked at one point, right? Which makes sense because, you know, when the skin's, you know, chafing, and you know, they thought, well, there's nobody else around here, let's row naked. So that's what they did for a while. And anyway, so for the satellite link to Breakfast TV, yeah, they showed the girls, you know, obviously with their clothes on, but as the camera was moving up and down like that, they caught the sight of Helen's lady garden, and you can imagine people were choking on their cornflakes, you know, in the morning, thinking, "Did we really just see that?" You know, like this, and it was all over the newspapers the next day.
No
You know,
way.
it was like her Sharon Stone moment, you know, from Basic Instinct. You know? So, yeah, I did write to her, you know, later. I said, "Well, this has obviously made you very famous."
Yes.
So we had a good laugh about that. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, spectacular. And the beautiful thing of what came with all this is not just a friendship, camaraderie between everybody that was involved,
Mm,
but also the the support they gave
mm.
for the Maggie's Cancer Center.
So what they did in Leeds was build Maggie's Cancer Caring Home,
Mm.
and it's a centre for people to go in and talk about um, cancer, the struggles, and people who've recovered. You know, they can go there and support, you know, other people. So that was absolutely massive. You know, we all know people who've had cancer, and you know, so I think that really resonated with me. And also the Yorkshire Air Ambulance, they have enough money to also contribute to Yorkshire Air Ambulance Service to buy a new helicopter.
Yeah, that is incredible.
Because in the Yorkshire area, they've got a lot of sort of hills and sort of rocky mountains, if you like, where people unfortunately have accidents and they need to be airlifted. People like to ride motorbikes, and drive fast cars on these roads, and they have accidents too. And I've known patients who've been lifted, out of the Yorkshire countryside, by an ambulance. Yeah. So again, that made headline news, and that was fantastic.
What a journey, and
Totally.
so inspirational.
Yeah.
That's if you put your mind to it, you can actually achieve anything.
Yeah. They got back to the UK. Their feet didn't touch the ground. They were wanted by every TV studio, interviews and celebrity appearances. They then started talking to companies, to inspire people in many different ways in business, and what they achieved and how you can achieve it in business too. So they started to go up and down the country, for quite a few years, and still doing it, doing after dinner speaking as well. Yeah, and
Incredible.
it impressed the hell out of so many people. And
Yeah.
when I was catching up with some of the F1 drivers and getting them to sign baseball caps and T-shirts and pictures, we used those things to auction to raise money, for the charities. And when I was explaining to the F1 drivers that this is for the Yorkshire Rows, Atlantic Challenge, they're going, "What the hell's that then?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, it's all about, rowing across the Atlantic." And they're thinking, "Why? How is it possible?"
Yeah.
They were just like absolutely gobsmacked and
Yeah.
amazed. Even some of the footballers were, again, I gathered a lot of memorabilia to auction off to raise money. The footballers like, wow, who would have thought people can do this? They do.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think the girls are very proud of themselves and their achievements, and to be such an inspiration and helping so many people after the challenge as well.
Yeah.
And to put all of that experience into so much good and helping and uplifting people and pushing people's boundaries and showing them the way, basically, that you can achieve if you want to.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. Well, I feel very, very inspired myself, and I think it's an incredible journey and story to again see your side of the support system that you are for these incredible journeys of people, and how important it is to have the right support system with you, right? And have the knowledge behind you to be able to bring you that far.
Yeah, and I was really grateful for them to accept that from me, and it also helped me wind down, if you like, from the incredible intense world of F1, and give me something else to focus on. And it was really quite a special journey. For me, it was also going a little bit into the unknown in a way.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I definitely want to thank Jeanette and Nikki, Helen and Frances for taking on such a big dream and being such an inspiration for so many. And definitely they made history.
Oh yeah. I mean, they go into the Guinness World Records for being the oldest women's team to ever cross the Atlantic, and it's like, wow, amazing.
What an achievement.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they got it. They got the stamp. They got the poster. They got the T-shirt, as they say.
Oh yeah, they have.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time for another amazing podcast with incredible, different stories again with Paul.